The Wirrappa S Curves are one of the most challenging sections of track for trains travelling across the remote Australian Outback, with steep grades and S-like curves amongst a stunning backdrop of rocky hills, salt lakes and sand dunes, making it one of the country's most iconic locations for train spotting. The curves are located around 460 kilometres north of Adelaide in the middle of Australia, between kilometre posts 242 and 251 on the Trans-Australian Railway. The curve section stretches 9 kilometres from the Wirrappa crossing loop uphill towards the small settlement of Pimba. And today we're spending the morning around the curves, capturing a bunch of the massive 1,850 metre long freight trains that take on this remote part of the country. The busy morning begins not long after sunrise, with Aurizon's 681 Intermodal bound for Darwin operating slightly behind schedule. It's worked by newly brought into service ACD class of 6068, which is joined by GWA 006, with the train captured on the lower part of the S curve. Just a few kilometres east of the S Curve sits the Wirrappa siding, which features an 1850 metre loop and a 60 metre dead-end siding. The loop sees daily crosses, with 2 to happen later in the day. But for the next train, 6SP5, it's straight through running. Double NRs of 112 and 8 operate the Sydney to Perth service straight through at speed on the main line. The section of track here is a part of the Trans-Australian Railway, which opened in 1917, linking Western Australia with the eastern states. Today, it is still the only east-west link across the country. From 1980, the section of line between Port Augusta and Tarcoola also became a part of the North-South link, with a line to Alice Springs constructed from Tarcoola, which later extended to Darwin in 2004. Now at the very top section of the curves, Pacific National's 5PM5 Super Freighter descends the grade working south, with a Great Southern liveried NR on the lead. 5 years ago, Aurizon had no operating services on the Trans-Australian Railway, with the operator now running the most trains between Port Augusta and Tarcoola. As the only freight operator to Darwin, contract holder for Team Global Express Intermodals, and operator of bulk iron ore trains from the north of the state. As a part of the operator's growing business, a new weekly service between Sydney and Perth is introduced of 6SP2. The service, which in some ways replaces the dedicated mineral sands service from Broken Hill to Perth, consists of a mixture of intermodal containers from Sydney and mineral sands loading from Broken Hill, and is captured at the top of the northern curves. Midday is now not far away, and the previously mentioned bulk iron ore train is the next service to battle the Wirrappa S Curves. This service is operating to the loading site at Wirrappa in the state's north, and runs empty with its distributed power locomotive combination, with 2 engines on the front and a single engine on the rear, making light work of the grade. The rail corridor through the curves has changed over the years, with the old layout running through the sand dunes on a much wider and sharper curve for decades. Now the line takes a shortcut on an embankment, allowing for a smoother curve but steeper grade. The only operator on the Trans-Australian Railway to not appear that morning was SCT Logistics, due to a late running service. Several weeks later, we returned to the S Curves on a late afternoon, with SCT's 2PM9 Intermodal working down the grade through the curves with a large eastbound train bound for Adelaide and Melbourne.